The so-called squad, AOC, are not actually standing up for the things that some people thought they would. This is from New York Magazine. This is not a small publication. You know, this is not my show. This is New York Magazine. This is AOC is just a regular old Democrat now. They are letting you know. And they make some great points in it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, recent appearances on Pod Save America podcast, which, for those who don't know, that is a podcast that is completely run and operated and hosted by Obama staffers. So you can imagine if she's being invited on there, what exactly does she stand for now? But it's beyond just being invited on there. On Pod Save America, the author is saying her appearance had for me the feeling of a final disappointment, the kind that's a little sad, but brings a set of quixotic hopes to a close. AOC appeared on the popular Crooked Media show to announce her endorsement of Joe Biden for president of the 2024 election. Because AOC, who was supposedly outside of the Republican Party, that was the idea, right? She's standing on the outside, banging on the window, saying, we are the real people. We are the real left, and we want in there. She was supposedly that when she first showed up. And here she is endorsing Joe Biden like a fucking year and a half before the election. She just wanted to get in early with that endorsement. She wanted to make sure people knew early that she was with the establishment. To deliver that particular endorsement while appearing on that particular podcast was to send a very deliberate message. It was AOC's last kiss-off to the radicals who had supported her, voted for her, donated to her campaign, and made her unusually famous in American politics. The beneficiary of a wholly unique cult of personality that is now starting to come undone. And let me just reiterate, this is mainstream media. This is not some crazy lefty blog. In 2021 interview with the publication Democratic Socialists of America, Ocasio-Cortez attacked left critics of the Biden administration on identitarian grounds. She said, quote, we really have to ask ourselves, what is the message that you are sending to your black and brown and undocumented members of your community, to your friends, when you say nothing has changed? Yeah, well, AOC, what's the message you're sending when you say that something has changed? What is the message that you're sending to black and brown and indigenous and every other person that is persecuted in this country under the Biden administration, under the fucking laws and ideas that Joe Biden has fought for his entire life? What kind of message are you sending when you say, yeah, that's real change? Putting the guy who wrote the laws that have doubled the prison population, that have put more black men in prison than there were slaves during slavery times. What is it to say that guy is real change? What does that say to your black and brown and, indigenous cousins and friends? The article continues, yet during the very period in which she gave that interview, the Biden administration had been busily deporting tens of thousands of undocumented immigrants, almost all of them black and brown. And by the way, the latest, to give you a little update on that, is many of you know that just recently Joe Biden changed the immigration policies to basically allow very little asylum requests. You have to book your asylum request for a refugee in advance via an app that probably no asylum seeker actually has if they have a phone when they're in the middle of the desert. And if you don't do that, then you're not even considered for asylum. That's what they did. So Biden was able to decrease people seeking asylum by basically saying people can't have asylum. Doesn't matter how much their lives are horrible, how much they need help, how much we have destroyed their society that they are running from. Didn't matter. If you didn't have the app and didn't apply online, I mean, what is this? Some sort of, is this a fucking Pokemon? Why did I say Pokemon? This is a Pokemon game on your phone. But a federal judge just shot that down and said that's illegal by our Constitution, which it should be. At a campaign event in 2018, she addressed how Brett Kavanaugh could be confirmed to the Supreme Court despite the sexual assault allegations against him, saying, when people say, how could this have happened? It is because of the slow slide of our public institutions, when too many people sat on the sidelines and read the news and said, wow, that's crazy. Time to go to class. So she's criticizing people for not taking action. And then this article continues, in her consistent fealty to the Democratic Party leadership, she has done exactly that, lamenting how crazy the world is, then hurrying off to dutifully follow the lead of her superiors. Ocasio-Cortez publicly castigated the railway companies, you remember during the railway strike, and demanded better conditions for workers, then voted to forbid the strike. So this is an ongoing theme. This is an ongoing theme for Ocasio-Cortez is she'll say something that I would agree with, that many of you may agree with, and she'll say it with a lot of certitude, a lot of feeling. Sometimes she's crying as she says it, and then she'll run off and either vote for the opposite, or she'll stand with the opposite, or she'll vote, as we're about to see, vote present instead of voting no for something. I saw someone was asking how to get my book. I'm just going to throw this in there. That the new book, Dangerous Ideas, it's an ebook, and I did just apply to have it available on ebook platforms, because until now it has only been possible to get it by becoming a member at leecamp.locals.com. However, soon, I don't think it has appeared yet, but soon it will be available on all platforms. Okay, I'm going to keep reading this article at rumble.com/leecamp. That's rumble.com/leecamp. Just give me 1 second to make the switch over. Oh, yeah, and also Locals. If you're watching on Locals, you'll be fine there. This will all continue on my Locals page and on Rumble. Okay, here we go. One more instance of AOC throwing her supporters to the wolves, or ignoring them, or whatever you want to call it. Less surprising, the article said, but just as damning, has been Ocasio-Cortez's meek attitude towards Biden's foreign policy. The Israeli occupation of Palestine is perhaps where AOC's position has been most indefensible, most self-parodying. She has mixed, at times, impressive rhetoric with total inconsistency as a legislator. On the campaign trail in 2018, she ruffled many feathers by saying the occupation of Palestine is just an increasing crisis of humanitarian condition, unquote. It's a testament to just how constrained the establishment conversation is on this issue that such a mild statement drew controversy. But simply referring to the occupation as an occupation was an encouraging sign for a lawmaker. I remember when that happened, and I was like, oh, shit, she means a little bit of business. She called it an occupation. To continue from the article, so disappointing then that Ocasio-Cortez has spent the past half-decade waffling on this issue. Notoriously, she cried on the floor of Congress over a bill to fund Israel's Iron Dome, one small part of our country's seemingly endless willingness to support the country's domination of Palestine. And then she proceeded to vote present rather than voting no on the funding bill in question. So she's literally crying up on Congress, on the floor of Congress, and then refuses to vote no. Instead votes present, which means she didn't want it to go down. She basically didn't want it to go down as a no in the record. She didn't want people to bring that up and say, you don't support Israel. Typically, the article continues, when I criticize AOC, the response is not to argue that she has actually acted deftly as a politician, or that she's demonstrated any consistency between her statements and her actions. That's not the argument. Instead, I'm constantly told that the problem lies in expecting anything from her at all. They say, hey, she's just one congresswoman. They say, hey, she's hemmed in by her party and an undemocratic system. They say, hey, she's constrained by capitalism. Again and again, I've been told that asking AOC for minimal ideological consistency or even worse results is simply to ask too much. But this defense immediately suggests a rather damning question. If AOC never had a chance of doing anything, what have we been celebrating her for? Which is so true. It's like people are like, look, she's trying to create change. That's what she wants to. It's just a Republican. It's just and well, Biden wouldn't let her, and the parliamentarian was really getting in the way. He was like tripping her when she walked down the hall. But like he said, if she can't do anything, if that's the idea, then why are we excited? Why were we ever excited about AOC? What was that? What was the point? Just one more instance of her. I thought I highlighted something about the Met Gala. I don't think I have that one up here, but she went to the Met Gala and wore a dress that said tax the rich. And the article points out this is trying to have it both ways. It's trying to be a part of the incredibly wealthy mingling of celebrities and rich, and also trying to claim to her supporters that she's not one, even as she's at that party, even as she's drinking that wine, even as, and this is true for pretty much all of them, they have a team of essentially servants. I know they're, makeup artists and things like that, but there's a team circling them of servants, fixing their hair and fixing their dress and carrying her dress. I think at one point there's an image of someone carrying the end of her dress. And it's like, you can't be at one of the richest events on the planet, surrounded by the rich, with servants carrying your dress, and then say, no, I'm here to let everyone know that we need to tax the rich. Also, the point I made at the time is tax the rich is like the most sheepish of statements you could have put on that dress. You could have said down with capitalism. You could have said eat the rich. You could have said compost the rich. You could have said the rich are killing us. You could have said a lot of things. Instead, it was just, let's increase their taxes by a little bit. That's what. And I don't know why I'm doing that voice that's not an AOC voice. It's just a meek, sad voice. What if we increase the taxes just a little bit? We don't want to make them angry. He then goes through a pretty good quick history here. He goes, it's been 5 years since AOC was elected after making constant self-aggrandizing statements about her revolutionary potential. It's been 7 years since the Bernie Sanders primary run in 2016, when it briefly seemed like real change might be coming to the Democratic Party. It's been 12 years since Occupy Wall Street, which demonstrated the organic demand for radical change. It's been 15 years since the financial crisis that convinced so many Americans that the system is broken and that the wealthy broke it. What do we have to show for all of the noise that's been made in that time? Now, I think on a large scale, I agree with him that you have not seen changes to the U.S. system. In fact, it just seems to be speeding up the exploitation of the poor, of the downtrodden, of the workers. It just seems to be speeding up. In terms of, the idea that Occupy Wall Street gained nothing, or that many of these, now I agree with electing AOC, that's gained nothing. But in terms of Occupy Wall Street and some of these other protests gaining nothing, I disagree, because I think that they create ripples that continue to push people towards these ideas. And as I was just talking about with Cornel West, and I essentially asked him this, what, even if you don't become president, what impact can you have? And he talked about, waking people up to these ideas and standing up for truth and justice and standing up for the downtrodden, standing up for a better world. So there's a lot that can come out of those moments. In terms of electing someone to the Democrats who says, oh, I'm not a Democrat, I am outside of the Democrats, I am going to push the Democrats. And then they get in there and they just do exactly as all the Democrats do, which is be tools of corporate America. Then that, I feel, it's beyond meaningless, because it makes people, it actually is very harmful to any active change, because it makes people think that fighting for AOC is change, that fighting for these sheepish piecemeal maybe one day one of them will vote to protect, an abortion pill here or there. And you're like, and everyone goes, "Oh, well, we did it." And it's like, is that it? As everything else collapses, as women's rights continue to collapse, you know, uh, the Democrats celebrated what Joe Biden was doing for immigrants, even as he was deporting, more than ever before in some circumstances. In other circumstances, yes, it was less than Trump because of various reasons around COVID and the pandemic and such. But, Obama deported more than Trump did. Now, Obama had 8 years. But really, the point is that they're the same. Neither of them stand up for immigrants. Neither of them stand up for the downtrodden. Neither stand up for the exploited. Neither stand up for those who really need help or a hand up in this world that is capitalist clusterfuck.